MacGyver Mukwevo, known to South Africa and the world as Macg, was born and raised in Gauteng. He came from humble beginnings, growing up in a family that instilled discipline and resilience from an early age. His childhood wasn't filled with luxury, but it was rich in character and vision. Even as a young boy, he had a deep curiosity about entertainment, especially radio and music. Before the fame and controversy, Macg was just a young man with a dream. In high school, he showed a strong interest in sound, radio, and DJing. He began experimenting with recording software and would often practice creating radio-style voiceovers at home. It wasn't long before his talent became obvious. By the time he finished school, Macg had already set his sights on joining the entertainment industry. He was determined to carve a name for himself, and that's exactly what he did. In the early 2000s, Macg landed his first big break at YFM, one of the most popular youth radio stations in South Africa. It was here that he started making a name for himself. His energy, voice, and bold personality made him a fan favorite.
Hello?
Yo, what up, Shemaine?
Hi, who am I speaking to?
You speaking to Patrick, man.
Patrick from?
From Abetla.
Oh, okay. Did I meet you, no, wait, I can't remember.
Yeah, no, actually, we met this past Saturday at Parktown Girls, I was the guy who came up to you, asking if I could have your numbers and ish like that,
Oh, okay, well, my memory is, not that good. What do you drive, Patrick?
I don't drive anything, I don't have a car, man.
At YFM, he hosted various time slots, including some high-profile shows, and quickly rose to prominence. But Macg wasn't just a radio guy. He had a deep love for music as well. Over time, he began producing music and working with local artists. Although his music career didn't take off in the same way his radio career did, it added another layer to his creative identity. He DJ'd at events, produced house music tracks, and built up his presence in the local nightlife scene. It was during this time that Macg became known for his edgy, boundary-pushing style. He didn't follow the script. He asked the questions others were afraid to ask, and he brought a raw authenticity that connected with the youth. But as his star rose, so did the pressure, and the controversy would soon follow. Macg had already made a name for himself at YFM, but success in radio often came with a cost. The industry was heavily censored, especially in South Africa, where broadcasting regulations demanded polished content with little room for real conversations. For someone like Macg, unfiltered, bold, and raw, this eventually became a cage. Tensions began to rise. While his fan base loved his honesty and humor, his superiors didn't always feel the same. The turning point came when Macg made a controversial joke during one of his shows. What followed was immediate backlash. The station placed him under scrutiny, and eventually he was let go. His career in traditional radio had hit a wall. Many thought this was the end. In fact, Macg himself was uncertain. The entertainment industry can be brutal. One wrong step and your name is off the list. He disappeared from the mainstream spotlight, but in the silence, something powerful began to grow. Around 2018, Macg started toying with the idea of a podcast. It was a new format in South Africa, raw, unscripted, and totally independent. It was everything traditional radio wasn't. Together with a few friends and collaborators, he launched Podcast and Chill, recording from a modest home studio with minimal equipment. At first it was slow. South Africa wasn't fully into the podcast culture just yet, but Macg didn't quit. Episode after episode, he brought on interesting guests, kept the energy real, and said the things others wouldn't dare to say. The content was edgy, unpredictable, and often controversial, but that's exactly why people loved it. Unlike television or radio, Macg's podcast didn't need to be sanitized. He could speak honestly, joke freely, and bring out the rawest sides of his guests. He was no longer playing by anyone else's rules. Podcast and Chill started gaining traction through YouTube. Macg uploaded full episodes, clips, and even behind-the-scenes content. Word began to spread, first through social media, then through the streets. Suddenly, Macg wasn't just back. He was leading an entertainment revolution. He brought on guests like celebrities, musicians, influencers, and people with wild stories. The format was laid back, often with a drink in hand and totally unscripted. It felt like eavesdropping on a conversation among friends, and that's what made it addicting. But with growth came new levels of criticism. Macg's uncensored approach didn't sit well with everyone. Some episodes caused outrage. Sponsors pulled out. Journalists criticized him. But through it all, Macg remained unapologetic. He doubled down on authenticity. The more people tried to cancel him, the more his fan base grew. Viewers respected the fact that he stood his ground. In a world full of polished lies, Macg offered unfiltered truth. By 2020, Podcast and Chill had gained momentum, but 2021 is the year it exploded. At a time when mainstream media still walked on eggshells, Macg charged forward, bold, blunt, and unfiltered. His honesty became his weapon, and the microphone his stage. The episodes were long, the jokes were raw, and the guests, unpredictable. But what truly changed the game was the viral moment. One of the first major episodes to break the internet featured Jub. The interview was explosive. Jub spoke openly about his relationship with Kelly Kumalo and made shocking allegations that sent the country into a frenzy. The interview quickly trended on Twitter, triggered headlines across media outlets, and hit millions of views in a matter of days. Macg's name was suddenly everywhere, and not always in a good way. The same interview sparked major backlash. There were calls to cancel the show. Sponsors like Amstel withdrew, publicly distancing themselves from the platform. Some fans were divided. Was Macg giving a platform to toxic voices or just exposing the truth? But while the industry argued, Macg's audience grew. His supporters respected one thing above all: consistency. He didn't change his format. He didn't censor guests. He stood firm. And that's when the Chillers, his loyal fan base, doubled down in support. The term Podcast and Chill wasn't just the name of a show anymore. It was a culture. As time went on, Macg brought on even more big names, from Nota Baloyi, who delivered outrageous takes on the music industry, to celebrities like Sol Penduka, Pearl Thusi, and Black Coffee. These weren't scripted interviews. They were raw conversations where truth was often stranger than fiction, and the team, it expanded. Macg recruited Sol Penduka as a co-host, a former radio presenter with a twisted sense of humor and deep industry knowledge. Together, their chemistry brought a new energy to the podcast. Then came the Ghost Lady, an anonymous, witty voice that balanced out the madness with smart, timely comments. This trio would become the heartbeat of the podcast. While the podcast was his main focus, his love for music never faded. He occasionally DJ'd at events and even hosted the podcast at festivals and nightlife venues, where his background in house music culture still resonated. It reminded fans that before the mic, there were decks, and before the podcast, there was music. By late 2021, Podcast and Chill became the biggest podcast in South Africa. Millions of views, thousands of chillers, endless headlines, but success only made Macg louder, and the controversy, it never stopped coming. As Podcast and Chill grew in popularity, so did the scrutiny. The show's unfiltered approach often led to moments that sparked national conversations. In July 2022, Julius Malema, leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, appeared on the podcast. The episode was candid, covering topics from politics to personal anecdotes, and showcased the platform's ability to host high-profile figures in relaxed settings. Fast forward to May 2025, Macg found himself at the center of controversy following remarks made about media personality, Minnie Dlamini. During an episode, Macg speculated on Dlamini's personal life in a manner many found derogatory. The comments were met with widespread backlash from the public, advocacy groups, and government officials, who labeled the remarks as misogynistic and a form of online gender-based violence. This incident reignited discussions about the responsibilities of content creators and the impact of their words. While some defended Macg's right to free speech, Others called for greater accountability and sensitivity, especially when discussing personal matters of public figures. Despite the controversies, Podcast and Chill maintained a strong following, with supporters appreciating its candidness. Yet, the events of May 2025 served as a reminder of the fine line between open dialogue and respect for individuals' dignity. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.